some tips and, what is it really like to attend New York Climate Week so that you can maximize your time, and hopefully we'll be able to see you there. I have a poll prepared. I don't normally do polls, but I was like, let's try a poll. Is it wanting to pop up right now is the question. So, all right, first poll, where are you based? And have you been to Climate Week before? Let's see how that turns out. Wow, this is like in real time getting updated. We've got about 70% of people who have never attended before, and 36% of people who have, and 70% of people who are actually based in New York, which is kind of interesting. So that's really cool. All right, well, thank you for participating in the poll. And we have a packed agenda today. I'm going to do some welcomes. I'm going to give a little overview of Women in Climate, and we're going to go into the overview of New York Climate Week, some planning, some tips on speaking, and everything else in between. And for those of you that just joined, Kate is going to be able to post in the chat, and I'm just going to make sure that I disabled the waiting room, because then that would be not so great. Okay, looks like no one is in the waiting room and it is disabled. So just to give everyone a little overview in case you have not interacted with Women in Climate as much, I'm just going to give you a quick overview. So Women in Climate is a 501c3 nonprofit. We started in New York, and we have a truly global reach today. Our goal is to create a joyful and safe space for more women to learn and talk about climate. You'll see in a lot of our events that there's no climate experience necessary. Our goal is to really help more women get started on their personal and professional climate journey. And we are also really passionate about giving women climate leaders, entrepreneurs, enthusiasts a platform to share their solutions and ideas. Women in Climate was founded by myself and supported by Stephanie Corbally, who is our head of communications. If you are in our Slack group, you have seen Stephanie, who gives so much love and TLC to our Slack community to help us thrive and connect with each other. And we mostly do grassroots events, I would say. We organize a lot of just local dinners, typically 10 to 15 people at a vegan restaurant, but we've grown quite large. And our last dinner, co-hosted by Kate, was 70 people in New York. At Climate Week last year, we did an in-person event with over 100 attendees. Sonam was a speaker there as well. And we recently actually just came back from Doha, Qatar, where we did an event in conjunction with the Carbon Capture Utilization Storage Forum. And we had about 50 women that were attending the conference come together for an evening of networking, dinner, and sharing some of our best practices and learnings in the industry. So our marquee sort of resource that we've released recently is our Women in Climate Speaker Database. And this is a database that is intended to help women get speaking gigs. And it was inspired by my time at COP27, where I saw an opportunity for more women to be on stage. So in the networking doc, in the helpful links page, you'll be able to find the link to our speaker database. Anyone can create a free profile. You can also get access via our website. So whether you're a new speaker or you're a seasoned speaker, you are welcome to create a free profile so event organizers can find you. And we are actually promoting today all the speakers that have indicated they will be in New York Climate Week in person. So we are helping all of our women speakers get more speaking opportunities during New York Climate Week. So again, head over to our page and create a new profile for yourself. So with that, I am going to just give a quick introduction of myself and allow my fellow webinars attendees to introduce themselves as well. So my name is Michelle. I am the founder of Women in Climate. I did not traditionally have a climate career. I used to work for tech companies and was on the software sales side, but about 3 years ago, I transitioned to climate full-time. I have 2 projects. The first one is called Clever Carbon, where we teach people about carbon footprint in a really hip and fun way. And Women in Climate is my second project, and really great to see you all here this morning. I'm going to pass it to Sonam and Kate for an introduction.
Hey everyone, I'm Sonam Velani. I am the co-founder and managing partner of Street Life Ventures. We are a pre-seed and seed venture fund focused on the intersection of cities and climate. We invest across the board in everything from sort of buildings, energy, mobility, adaptive infrastructure, waste and water, all of the nuts and bolts of your cities. In trying to make them more resilient and sustainable for the long run. We also do a lot of place-based deployments and work with sort of a network of catalytic capital partners to do so, to help de-risk technologies and sort of accelerate both the transition as well as investment in this space. I spent my entire career in climate. I started in infrastructure finance at Goldman, have worked at the World Bank on how to build infrastructure that doesn't fall apart in earthquakes or hurricanes or other natural disasters all across Asia. And also worked at City Hall in New York and led the development of One NYC, which is New York City's climate plan, and how we as a city are going to get to net zero by 2050. So I am personally very excited to welcome all of you to New York in the coming months, and excited to dive in.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kate Mikuliak. My pronouns are she, her, and I have been working in the sustainable movement of people, goods, and waste for almost 20 years now. And more recently, I started working as a life coach for women in climate, helping to make self-confidence sustainable and helping women have more impact with less stress and overwhelm. And I'm also a New York City lead for Women in Climate. And so I put on events like the one that Michelle mentioned, the dinner in May. And I also am organizing with my fellow New York City co-leads, co-city leads, a picnic in Prospect Park. We just hit our capacity at 100. So it's going to be a really big picnic, and I hope that you registered. And if you haven't, please sign up for the waiting list, because I have a feeling a lot of people are going to be dropping off as their summer plans firm up. So it's a little bit about me.
Awesome. Thank you, Kate and Sonam. It's really wonderful to have 2 really prominent New York City leaders here to share their thoughts. I'm going to quickly launch my second poll here, and I would like to know, are you right now going to Climate Week? So we've got a few yeses and about 40% that are still deciding. So this is a really great webinar for you then. All right, let's get into it. So a little disclaimer, we are not authorized to speak about Climate Group. This is not us trying to share with you like what the Climate Group is or what Climate Week is. This is us sharing our experiences with the group here. So just a quick note on that. And with that, I'm going to jump into the overview. So the New York Climate Week is organized by a nonprofit called the Climate Group, and they organize different sort of climate weeks all over the world. They did one just recently in London, and basically it's a platform that allows people to host their own events during that week and sort of register it with the Climate Group. And nonprofits can register their events for free. An event can be a 1-hour panel that is in person. An event can be a webinar that's 1 hour, that's a panel that's virtual. An event can be a full day summit, or an event can be just a happy hour. So there's really not a lot of boundaries around what an event is, and you can register any event, whether it is in person or virtual. And nonprofits can register their events for free. A donation is recommended. And for-profits can register events, and there's a fee of $600 to register your event, but can submit an event. And in the networking doc, there is the link to actually submit an event. Kate, if I can ask you to one more time, just pop in that networking doc link, that would be awesome. And this year, Climate Week is taking place September 17th to 24th. It overlaps a little bit with the UN General Assembly, as well as the Clean Global Initiative. So there's a lot that's going on in the city during that time. The events, there's over 400 of them last year. They are mostly held in Manhattan. There are sometimes events in Governor's Island or in Long Island and in Brooklyn, obviously, but most of them I would say is around Manhattan. And there is the main program, which is organized by the climate group themselves. So they have their own sort of opening ceremony. They've got a climate leaders reception, the Hub Live. Those tend to be by invitation. And then there's the public events where anyone can submit an event and you can apply to attend the events. A lot of them are Eventbrite, and you just register for a ticket. So with that, I would like to pass it to Sonam and Kate to kind of share, like, what's it like to attend Climate Week? Sonam, you want to go first?
Oh, sure. So I would say that having sort of been in the climate ecosystem for a really long time and having been to many climate weeks, both pre and post COVID, every year is very different. You know, I will get into this, but so much of it is thinking about sort of what do you want to get out of it, right? There is a hubbub of activity in New York during that week, especially as Michelle mentioned, given the UNGA. And just a lot of sort of events across the ecosystem. My favorite thing is the fact that there are so many different types of events. There's everything from site visits to small events, large events, and everything in the middle. So it's very much so thinking about where, what type of physical places, as well as or sort of types of events you're most comfortable in where you think that you can get the most value. Is one thing that I often think about when attending these things. And then secondly, everybody's in town, right? So think of it as like a way to network on speed, but be mindful of where you're spending your energies and take advantage of, forums like this and the networking doc so that you can see who else is going to be there and try to set up meetings beforehand. I would also say, like, you don't have to meet everyone, right? But you might meet folks, like follow up for conversations afterwards on Zoom, right? We do have technology to continue those chats. So take advantage of that as well.
And I'll just add that it's really exciting to be in a space that's full of like our people, right? People who acknowledge the climate crisis is real, it's here, and it needs to be addressed, and are working passionately on the solution. Whether you're currently in the space or you're looking to get in the space, the energy and excitement and just the vibes are really invigorating. And so especially if you're feeling a little slumpy in your job, going to a bunch of events or even just one event that is has that energy is going to be really helpful for you. And yeah, it's really exciting.
I would agree with Kate on that as well. There's a lot of energy in the city that week, and you just can't help but like be excited. And normally your bedtime's like 9 p.m. and then all of a sudden you find yourself going to bed at like after 9 p.m. Ooh, it's it kind of breaks part of yourself out. So let me continue here. So planning for Climate Week, I did see about 50% of people who are still kind of like on the fence. I also saw a lot of people that are actually based in New York. So depending on where you are on that spectrum, there's a couple of tips that I would like to share. If you are traveling from outside of New York, you must plan your housing and your travel now. All the hotels get booked out, all the Airbnbs get booked out. There's just so many people in town. Get your housing early. I would also suggest you browse events regularly. It's still a little bit early now, but on the Climate Group website, they have a list of all the different events that are happening. And I checked last week and they haven't really listed any of the side events yet. So check back and we'll send a message to everyone on our Slack group when the events have started posting, but you'll want to kind of check back regularly to see the new events that are coming out and make sure you register for what you want to go to. I would say definitely build in time for rest and spontaneity. You know, you might have your sort of schedule down to a T, but you meet someone at this event and then they invite you to another event, and there's just a lot of spontaneity, which is a really great thing, and just be prepared for that. I think pre-networking is really great as well. So take advantage of our list here, take advantage of our Slack group. And in our Slack group, we have a Connect NYC Climate Week channel. So everything around housing, maybe you want to find someone to share a room with, or maybe someone in New York has a spare bedroom available. That's where you can go and get answers to those questions. And then we also have our WhatsApp group. We very typically organize WhatsApp groups for different types of events. So, you know, South by Southwest, COP, SF Climate Week. We had a WhatsApp group of women who want to, you know, engage and share best practices, like, hey, are you going to this event? Or, hey, anyone know how to get into that event? That's kind of what those channels are for, especially the WhatsApp group. And links to join all of those are in the helpful links part of the Google Doc. All right. So when it comes to speaking, if you're interested in speaking at Climate Week, and I hope many of you are, there are various opportunities to speak. So the Climate Group has an official form where you can apply to speak at their events. They get a lot of different applications, so that might be a little bit difficult, but they do have an open form. So that is in our helpful links section in the networking document. There's also a ton of independent events. So again, you know, monitoring those event pages, and, you know, a lot of the times pages will have like apply to speak or whatnot. And if they don't, and if you really want to speak at that event, just look for some information and get in touch with people. Like, don't be shy. I think what I found in my career is you just got to go and you got to ask, and the answer may be no, but if you don't ask, you'll never know. And then we have our Women in Climate Speaker database as well. So that's more of a way for event organizers to proactively reach out to you. So if you haven't registered or you haven't created a profile yet, it takes only 10 minutes. I would definitely encourage you to do that. So is it worth it? I think one of the reasons why I wanted to do this webinar is because I know that there are people who are not based in New York and are maybe thinking about coming, and it definitely is not only investment in your time, but a financial investment as well. So maybe, Kate, did you want to kick us off on this question? Is it worth it?
Sure, yeah. I mean, I think from my perspective as someone who's already in New York City, it's totally worth it. I actually am choosing to take the week off from work because last year I tried to do both work and night events and it was completely exhausting. So I was like, no, I really want to dedicate. And I also missed a lot of stuff I really wanted to go to. So I'm taking the week off from work so I can entirely focus on Climate Week. So it's very worth it for me. I imagine that if someone's thinking about whether to travel and whether it's worth it, I mean, I think I'll get into a little bit more about, you know, my answer to that in my tips later. So I don't want to steal my own lightning or thunder, whatever it is. But I think it's worth it. Sonam, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I definitely think it's worth it. There was a question in the chat about sort of thinking about this as a networking opportunity. Like, everyone you will want to meet in climate is here. And I think the beauty of these types of events is that you might be sitting next to someone who might give you a new job, who might give you, you know, funding for your startup. You know, I've plenty of stories from over the years in terms of people I've met who then I've become friends with and have reached out to as I build my own business. And I think that there's spontaneity in that's involved. All that said, one thing that I really emphasize about networking is that it's one thing to meet someone and have a 10-minute conversation or even a half an hour conversation, another to follow up with them on a Zoom chat, and then a third to actually stay in touch. And most people don't do the latter, right? Like you might talk to someone once and then you fall off the face of the earth, and then, you may need their help, 2 or 3 years down the line, and that person doesn't remember you. So I think key to all of this is like, you put in what you get out, and it's not just about one event, but a longer term relationship that you need to build with the folks in this community.
Yeah, agreed. Good tip on the networking part, specifically, Sonam. And for me, if you can afford the time and if you can financially make it work, you want to be here. There are so many world leaders that are in town. There's so many events that, normally wouldn't be happening because there aren't this caliber of people in town. And to be able to be part of that and feel that energy, I think is really, really definitely worth it. There's so many events that you can attend and networking events, and you have your Women in Climate community as well. So, comparing my experience at COP27 and comparing New York Climate Week last year, I would say, New York Climate Week is, there are some closed door meetings and events, but most of it is open to the public, and you have the world kind of coming together, for COP, but they also come together for New York Climate Week. And it's much easier to be in New York than to be in some of the other countries. So I would 100% say that it is worth it. All right, let me resume. So some of our favorite events, tend to, there are certain events that get repeated every year, and there are events that are new. And so since we can't really see what's coming up yet, these are some of our favorite events from last year. And also because I am organizing an event, I'm plugging that as well. But last year for Climate Week, we organized an in-person happy hour celebrating all the women who were working in climate and taking climate action. This year, we are going to be doing an event that's going to be a sit-down dinner. Hopefully, it will be around 95 people. And look out for the Eventbrite that will be coming out when we're ready to announce everything. So if you aren't on our newsletter or in our Slack group yet, or following us on social media, those are the channels that we tend to share our events. Our event last year was sold out, and we had about 300 people on the wait list. So you definitely want to get on our newsletters and make sure you are informed of when everything is getting released. This year, I'm also organizing another event called the Carbon Newbie Summit. And this is an event that is aimed towards professionals that are newer to climate and want to learn what is carbon footprint, how does it show up in my personal life, how does it show up in my professional life. The website and everything is already up. I will drop that into the chat later on, but I'm organizing that event on September 21st, held at the Indie Bio offices and held in conjunction with the Carbon Almanac and Carbon Better. Additionally, I'd like to plug the Marketplace of the Future. It's organized by some of our friends here in New York City. It's normally a really vibrant space, and I actually got to see a little video of their spaces here. It's going to be really large. It's a full day event. They also have space for exhibitors, and I know a couple of people on the call have also been or exhibited last year. And this always takes place on the Friday. Okay. And then one more event is Goals House. Goals House is a really incredible space where global leaders and thought leaders come together, and there are panels, there are roundtables, there's lunches and dinners, and there will be more details in terms of the exact dates, but they will be at Tavern on the Green, similar to last year. And if you have an opportunity to attend a Goals House event, I would highly recommend it. We are friends with them at Women in Climate, and so hopefully we'll have some space for our members to be able to attend the house.
For those of you who like very futuristic technology, there's Activate, which is a fellowship program based in a number of different cities. One of them is in New York, and they always put on a showcase of what all of their fellows are working on. You know, everything from really cool carbon capture technology to methane reductions from wastewater plants and a whole host of other things. So I think that is one of my favorite events, particularly because I work in this space. I'm quite interested in like what are the newer innovations out there. Michelle, next slide. Next is the Climate Capital Summit. So this is actually the first time this is being held, and a number of folks are coming together under the umbrella of our friends at Equal Ventures to talk about the capital stack in climate, right? And how do you think about building your company? What are the different sources of capital that are needed? What are values of debt, and where can you sort of support yourself through a variety of different types of capital, right? Whether that's non-dilutive capital from accelerators or incubators, whether it is venture philanthropy, whether it is loans from the Department of Energy, to various elements of venture funding, right? And who should you be talking to at what stage in your life cycle as a growth of a company? You know, I work in this space. I've sort of spent a lot of time on this space, and I think this is the one thing where entrepreneurs are often probably most confused, right? Because your job is building a business, but to fund that business, you've got to think about what's the right type of capital so that you prevent dilution as you grow. So that is, I'm very excited for this event. And I'm really glad that the folks at Equal are putting it on, and you know, a lot of the sort of well-known names in the ecosystem will be there. Next slide, Michelle. And then I have to tout our own organization as well. I'm the co-founder of a group called Climate Tech Cities. We are the largest place-based climate tech community in the world. We have weekly newsletters in a number of different cities, happy hours like this one on the rooftop of one of the more sustainable hotels in New York City, Citizen M, and about 40% of the group is founders and operators. We have a weekly newsletter. It's linked for New York City. It's linked in the Excel spreadsheet that Michelle shared earlier. And we actually do a full curation of all 300 events that are put on during Climate Week. It's probably our most well-read post, so I encourage you to check it out. And we are very glad to be supported. We think of ourselves as a sort of a community of communities, right? So Women in Climate and a number of the different organizations that you all are a part of are sort of a part of this ecosystem. So come to our happy hour event during the week, which we'll post up online as well.
And I would second Sonam. I love the climate tech events, especially at Citizen M. It's a gorgeous space. It's always fun to be on a rooftop in New York City, unless there's smoke. But it's a really great event. And is this your last event you wanted to highlight? Because I wanted to speak to events. Yes. Do you have one more? Okay. So like, I'm not going to pick favorites yet, but I do want to say just a moment, like, it can be really intimidating to hear like, oh, all of the global leaders are here in New York City, and these are the, like high-ranking people and the, all of the change makers. And it can be intimidating if you're like, well, I'm new to climate and I just want to come and listen, or I want to meet people who are like me and are also new to climate, or who are more entry level. And there are a ton of events for that too. So it's not New York City's COP, right? It's more like there's a little bit of that, but there's a little bit of everything for everyone. So once the events are posted, you'll get to see that there's like, all flavors and all entry points. So it's more diverse. So stay tuned.
Awesome. Thank you, Kate and Sonam. Now on to some tips and best practices. Okay, so
I think the first one, and this was actually mentioned in the chat, is like, why do you want to go to New York City Climate Week, right? Is it to find a new job? Is it to network? Is it to find a mentor? Is it to, find friends? Or maybe you think climate tech is sexy and you want to find your new boo. Like, there's lots of reasons to go. You can be honest with yourself about the reasons and prioritize them, right? So like, what's your number one reason for going? And like, maybe there's a number two and a number three reason. And that will be really helpful when it comes to, there's 3 different events for all of the reasons you want to go at the same time. Which one's your number one priority, right? Find your events in that knowing what you want, and then finding events that will give you an opportunity to get what you want, right? So for example, if you're really looking to meet people, even though there's an event that is on the topic or area of interest to you, if there's no talking about opportunities for networking, right? If there's no drinks or coffee or reception, it might just be an audience in, audience out type panel, and those do exist in Climate Week, so they might not be the best fit for you. So that will allow you to really prioritize your time a little bit better. Strategize for success, as in, when we're planning the week, a couple weeks or even a couple days earlier, it's really easy to be like, I'm going to schedule back-to-back events, and I'm going to, go to the party on Monday and then go to the 7 a.m. tour of the Governor's Island Climate Project the next day. And of course, like when it's 5:30 in the morning and your alarm clock goes off, you're like, oh, I don't want to do this. So what are ways that you can strategize to overcome those challenges, or even plan better to get what you want, right? And so maybe that's an accountability buddy, right? Someone who you're like, I really want to go to this event, but for whatever reason, it might not make it, right? You might be intimidated by the event, or maybe you're nervous talking big groups of people or networking. So like having an accountability buddy, it's a great opportunity to network with people, to find new friends, and Women in Climate is a great space for that. So make a plan for, like, I say what to do or say, but I meant like where to go, how to show up, and how to guarantee you get what you want, right? So that might be like practicing your elevator pitch, right? What do you want to say? What's the thing that you want to say when you meet everyone? And then lastly, be kind to yourself, right? It's okay if things don't go as planned. You might not be able to go at all, right? How can you take advantage of the virtual events? Maybe you plan the most amazing week and then you get COVID and you can't go at all. That's okay too. There is no scarcity of events in New York City or in anywhere around climate. And if you subscribe to Sonam's newsletter, you will find that every week there's climate events. So, and even if you show up and you don't talk to as many people or the person that you wanted to, that's okay too. You can always follow up via email. I've definitely not been able to connect with someone at an event and then sent them a LinkedIn message that says, hey, I saw you at this. I didn't get a chance to talk. Can we connect? So there's lots of opportunities. This isn't the only one. So don't put too much pressure on yourself, and you can always choose in advance how you're going to treat yourself. And you can always, when things don't go as planned, and you can always choose kindness. So those are my tips. Sonam, do you want to go over your tips now?
Yeah, and I have one addition to Kate's on the LinkedIn connections. As someone who gets a lot of LinkedIn connections from lots of random people, please include like 2 sentences about who you are and why you want to connect, right? People are busy. You have to recognize that, and not everybody has time to give. Like I would love to do career chats and all that every single day of the week. I don't have time, right? So I think you have to be mindful of that and really sort of be targeted in your outreach. Yes, there are space constraints, but keep it short and sweet, but also remind them like how you met and why you want to follow up, right? And be specific in those asks. And then follow up and continue that relationship, as I said earlier. So my biggest things are, as I mentioned earlier, mix it up, right? I think the great thing about New York Climate Week is that there are so many different types of events. I love smaller, 20 or 30 person gatherings, because you can sit around a table and have like a deep discussion and nerd out. I also love sort of larger happy hours, right? Because there's spontaneity involved in terms of who you might be standing next to and where, what that conversation might lead to. So I very much so encourage you to check out sort of large and small events. Not everything is listed on the Climate Week website, right? So just be mindful of that in terms of ask around, ask others like, oh, what are you going to next? Like, what are some of the things on your list, right? Get a sense of what's out there. Climate is very, very big, right? We are trying to transform literally every single sector of the economy. That is a huge undertaking. You alone will not solve the world, solve all of that, right? I wish we could, but it very much so takes a collaborative approach. And I think if you try to spread yourself too thin in terms of, wanting to learn about 10 different topics in sort of 1 week, you might walk away with very little, right? Instead of sort of depth in something that you're interested in. So I always recommend, picking 2 to 3 topics and stick with those topics, right? There are dozens of climate events and conferences every single year. Focus yourself to be able to like get the most out of it and make an impact. And then the third is really getting out there, right? Like New York City is huge. It is not just Manhattan, it's 5 boroughs. It's one of the largest cities in the world. And there's a lot of stuff happening in the climate ecosystem here. From sort of a new climate center at Governor's Island, which is that island that you see up in the top screen. One of my personal favorites is these eggs, which is our wastewater treatment plant in Newtown Creek, where they're turning basically waste to energy at the plant. And I think this is, these are just 2 examples of the transformative infrastructure projects that are happening around the city, many of which do offer tours. And so I encourage you to get out of the conference room and really see New York for what it is, right? Because it's emblematic of any city in the world that's undergoing sort of significant transformation given the threat from climate change, right? And there's no better thing than to see it in action.
Awesome. Thank you, Sonam, and thank you, Kate, for sharing your tips. These are my tips. So early bird gets the worm always, whether it's your hotel room or your flight. Again, I can't stress enough, there are still options for hotels now, especially, there are platforms where you can have free cancellation. So it doesn't hurt to grab yourself a room if you are thinking about attending. And even when you are at Climate Week, sometimes the events can get filled up. So making sure you can get there early, get a seat if there's like a panel taking place. That's my personal motto, is getting there early. If you are going to be there, getting around the city can be a challenge. And if you think, oh, I'm going to take an Uber from this event to that event, the roads are packed. And oftentimes, because there are leaders of states in the city, they can like block off an entire length of the street for 30 minutes and you have no idea why. So do not plan on getting around the city by vehicle on the roads. Either walking or getting familiar with the subway system is really your best bet. And be part of the community, share your best practices, be involved in our Slack channel and our WhatsApp group, and let's all help each other make the most of this really, really incredible event at this very critical juncture. We don't have a lot of time and we need to get the word out. So hopefully you'll all join our community here. And with that, I wanted to share some of the resources. You'll probably see most of them in the doc, but obviously our networking doc is a really helpful resource. Women in Climate will have a list of events where our speakers from our community are participating, or we have partners reach out to us and want to share their events on our platform. So there's a form in the networking doc. If you already know of an event that you'll be speaking at and you want us to list that event, you can fill out the form, but the form is going to be there. So no worries if you don't know right now. We also have our WhatsApp group. I saw a bunch of people already joined, so that is great. Our Slack channel, anything around events, housing, you can go ahead and share in there. Our speaker database, we'll have a recording of the webinar. There is an FAQ that is in the doc as well, and I'll be monitoring that every once in a while, but if you have any questions, and we can put those in there as well. And I'm going to put a pin in the pin for a really quick second. And the New York Climate Tech newsletter is the one that Sonam and Climate Tech Cities organizes. Be sure to join their newsletter because it's just a fount of really, really helpful information. So when it comes to the pin, Women in Climate has a really cute pin, and we are also a 501c3 nonprofit, and we create all these resources, all based off of volunteering our time. If you are in a position to buy us a coffee today or on a monthly basis, we really appreciate that. There's a QR code to easily provide a donation, and any donation over $30 for a one-time donation or any monthly donation will get you a free pin. The way that it works is we don't do any of the shipping, but we are friends with a zero waste shop in Brooklyn called Mason Jar, and they have a bunch of our pins, and we have an Excel spreadsheet for them. And anyone who wants a pin can donate and then let me know, and then I'll add your name to the list, and you can go pick it up at Mason Jar. Or if you don't live in New York City, you can get your friend to go pick it up for you, and they can mail it to you or keep it for you for now. But this pin has been seen globally from Doha all the way to Munich and Berlin, and I'll be sporting it as I travel to Asia next week to represent Women in Climate. And it's a great visual way to like, oh, I enter this event, I know that person is Women in Climate, let me go say hi. All right. So I'm going to open it up for any questions now and any discussions. So feel free to come off mute and come on your video. And just want to say a huge thank you to Kate and Sonam today for making time to prep for this session for our community. Kate and Sonam, your insights were invaluable. Thank you so much. So with that, any questions? Does anyone want to just come off mute?
Hi, I'm Brittany McFall. I don't have a question. I just want to say thank you so much for organizing this. It's really helpful. I've never been to New York Climate Week, and so all this information in one place and being able to connect with people, especially local people in New York, is super helpful. So I really, really appreciate this.
Thank you, Brittany.
I have a quick question. I'm India. I'm in Brooklyn. I went to New York Climate Week last year, but one problem I had was that I didn't know about New York Climate Tech Sonam's newsletter at the time, and I found it difficult to find a place where I could find lots of events. There didn't seem to be a central repository of those. So I was wondering where you all find your events.
Yeah, we find them, let's see, we find them through the climate group website where a lot of events are posted, but maybe not 100%. I'd say probably like 70% of events are posted there. We also do scrapes of LinkedIn and a number of different sort of climate oriented universities, communities, organizations across the New York City ecosystem, many of which put on events during that week. So it's a lot of scraping data off the internet in addition to the climate group site. And then we also have a submission form on our newsletter. So frankly, if any of you are ever putting on an event in New York City or any of the cities where we operate, we have newsletters in 5 cities so far, soon to expand to 15 cities this year. So if you have events to submit, you can always submit them online on our form as well.
Great, thank you.
Did anyone create a profile in our speaker database? Is anyone already on it?
Well, thanks to your nudge, I just created it. And it's funny because it's one of those things where I had been putting it off for literally months. And when it came down to it, when you like put the fire under my butt, because you were like, here's a speaking event that's perfect for you and it's only in the database. I was like, I gotta do it. It took 30 minutes, barely even. And that was because I was distracted while I was doing it. So it's one of those things that you just get in the database and then you can edit it later, right? Like I definitely am going to go back and edit it. I'm going to change the picture. It's something that it's not set in stone, right? So if you're interested in speaking opportunities, and another thing is that I love that there are 3 categories of speakers. There's 3 kind of tiers, right? There's like the speaker circuit where you're only taking paid speaking gigs. And then there's kind of like the intermediate, you've done about 20. That's where I am, right? I do a lot of speaking. I've done a lot of speaking for a variety of different, at the New York City Department of Transportation or other jobs. I've done it for the Solid Waste Advisory Board that I used to be on. I've done it for Women in Climate now. So like lots of different, and in my coaching business. So, there's that kind of medium level. And then there's the brand new to speaking, and there's opportunities there for you too. So has anyone else joined the database for speakers?
I agree. It doesn't take that long. Michelle nudges very well, but I 100% think that it's like really, really important, right? I mean, having gone to like lots of these things over the years, right? Like look at the speaker network at COP, right? Which is arguably one of the most important events in sort of climate, right? And it heavily skews male. So I think it's a great initiative by Michelle to put this on. And I think broadly with regards to public speaking, right, the more of it you do, the more comfortable you get, right? And it just takes a little bit of practice. I used to sort of write out every word that I would say in talks, right? And now I'm so comfortable and have my talking points and know how to sort of stay updated, right? That it comes very second nature to me, right? And I cannot emphasize just the fact of just getting out there and doing it. And that's how you'll build that comfort level. So I think it's a really, really great initiative. And I think, all of you should be in that database, right? Because every one of you has something to contribute. And just think about sort of what that is, right? And being able to articulate that is a really good exercise in and of itself.
Thanks for that, Sonam. And yeah, I was really excited to have someone reach out to us with a paid speaking opportunity to speak on waste. And I was like, Kate, why are you not in here? And she made her profile. So all is well.
And now we're in touch, right? Yeah. Laurel asked about an Airbnb, and I think something that we're looking to do potentially with Women in Climate, this is Michelle, if you want to talk about the housing, trying to facilitate connections to share things like Airbnbs and hotel rooms and couches.
Mm-hmm. In the networking doc, there is a column on housing. So if you are looking for housing, make sure you indicate that in the networking doc. If you are based in New York and you have housing available, I think that is one of the major barriers of people being able to attend. And I know this firsthand from last year. I had a friend who was in Boston and wanted to attend, but financially it couldn't work out because the housing was just so expensive. So if you are based in New York, if you have a couch, if you have a bedroom, consider maybe reaching out to people who are looking for housing. If there's a way that we can make it easier for you, please let us know, because I'd like that to be something that we can provide to our members, no matter if it's New York Climate Week or COP or otherwise. Like, let's try and not make housing a reason why people cannot participate in these types of events. All right, we've got another 8 minutes left if everyone still has questions. And if anyone else has attended Climate Week and you'd like to share a tip that maybe we didn't cover, you are welcome to go off mute as well and share with the group. We've got one on the chat here. Transportation was really tricky. Yeah, best options are really walking or public transportation and planning your schedule accordingly.
There's also City Bike, which is the city's bike share system. So that's an option.
Mm.
Wear a helmet. Um,
On the transportation front, this is Krisa. I would also suggest just creating your spreadsheet and really being thoughtful about where the locations that you're picking. There's no way you're gonna, even with 30 minutes, get across town, even sometimes with the subway, just remembering the subway sometimes works and sometimes it doesn't. So, you know, try and cluster your events within a 1 to 2 mile radius, or truly give yourself an hour to an hour and a half if you're trying to get across town.
Agreed. Thank you, Krista.
Also, it's possible to like just go to one event a day, right? Like just because it's there doesn't mean we have to take advantage of it, right? And especially for me, I'm like taking the week off from work, but I'm also like doing that because I don't want to burn myself out. So how, you know, I think there's a bunch of different options, and it's really important to kind of just like know yourself.
Agreed.
I have a quick question. Thank you again for everything. Do you guys like does anyone maybe like once the climate group posts more, 15 minutes to just like chat with somebody in the Women in Climate group, like one of the organizers, Michelle, Kate, Sonam, anyone like else, like Stephanie maybe, about like, hey, this is what I think I want to attend based on my goals. Like, do you think this sounds right? Like, is there anything I might have missed? Just like a 15-minute call, like nothing crazy, but just like for someone that's never attended before and wants to get the most out of it.
I mean, that's an ask that can be given to either the Slack or the WhatsApp group, because there's going to be a Slack channel. And I bet there's someone who like would love to talk to you about it. And I think like, I wouldn't want to say like, there's one designated person, because it depends on the event, right? It depends on the question. Someone who's like, oh, I can talk to you about it, might not be the best person for the event that you, or the questions you have. And so I would say like, the answer is yes. And, you know, we can help facilitate that. I think what has been really wonderful about the Women in Climate community is like, everyone is interested in helping, right? And eager to like, give their time and their expertise and their advice. So yeah, definitely welcome that ask.
Awesome. And if you are making a resource for yourself that you think the community could benefit from, please send it to me and I will include it in a list of like helpful links, so we don't all have to reinvent the wheel. Okay. Well, everyone has access to the networking doc. You're welcome to share that with other women. And when the recording is available, we'll also be sharing that out. And in the meantime, I hope to see you in the Slack channel, in the Connect NYC Climate Week channel, and in the WhatsApp group. I want to again thank Kate and Sonam for their time, for sharing their best practices with the community. And I think, you know, nothing would make me happier than to seeing the Women in Climate community in full force at Climate Week and just, you know, making some noise and making our presence known. And Kate's got her pin there, and I realized that I forgot to wear my pin this morning. I'm like right after this webinar, just like shifting. Oh, there you go. Okay. Yeah.
But we can hold it up so that it doesn't, you know, doesn't clash with my very colorful top.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And if you are interested in grabbing a pin for yourself, again, any donation over 30 for one time or any amount of a monthly donation will get you a pin, and we appreciate any support, you know, $5 for a coffee or whatever you can afford in your budget. But again, thank you everyone for joining, and I hope to see you at Climate Week this year. Bye,
Thank you, Michelle, for organizing and hosting.
Of course.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye. Thank you.